I live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I am 6 years in business with a social media management company. As I start my presentation, I will tell everybody a little bit more about me. So today we're going to talk about how we can use the web to reach prospective employees with disabilities. A few of the things that I plan to cover include my point of view and why it's relevant to you, how people with disabilities are using the web, where to find people looking for jobs, and creating your own action plan. So let's get started. As you know, my name is Rachel, and I own a social media management business based in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I struggle like any other small business owner with things like finding qualified leads, keeping my customers and staff happy, and continuing to maintain revenue. But I've also had an added challenge to my struggle and something that I deal with every day. I have significant hearing loss. And it's one of the reasons I started my own business, because the web has enabled me to level the playing field. In fact, entrepreneurship is on the rise, as many people are doing something similar, which we'll talk about later in this presentation. The bottom line is people with disabilities are resourceful because we've had to be. From my perspective as someone with hearing loss, it's not only something that's physically challenging, but it's also something that's psychologically challenging as well. There is an inherent human need to be and feel like everybody else with no limitations. Because of this, I predict that many physically disabled people do not announce that they're disabled, particularly when setting up profiles online. We want to be defined by our capabilities, not our limitations. This poses a challenge for employers or advocate groups looking to reach candidates online. But at the same time, those with disabilities long for a community of other people who they can identify with. And because of that, there are ways to find the people that you're looking to reach. But I will tell you that it may take a shift in your mindset and in the way that you do things now. Social networking is not a tactic or a quick fix. It's an ongoing strategy, a conversation, and a community. It's relationship building, and it does take time. In fact, you may decide to rethink your current approach to using the web once you finish listening to this webinar. Social media can be an effective way for anyone to socialize and network for a career, but it can be especially powerful for people with disabilities. Here are a few key ways that they're using the web. The first one is brand building. About 15% of those with disabilities in the workforce are self-employed, compared with only 10% of the rest of the workforce. Small business owners make the most of social media to highlight their products and services, and marketing on these platforms is usually inexpensive or free. Those who work for other people also use social media as a way to establish credibility in their field, which will help their career in the long run. Like-minded networking. Many use online groups and forums to talk about their health and seek advice and camaraderie from people who really do understand. A lot of people find that their closest allies are people they have never actually met but become part of their journey with a disability. And also disability awareness. Through the normal course of social media activity, some shed light on what life is like with a disability, and they provide helpful resources. They raise awareness in the form of photos, status updates, or links. And then they have friends, families, and acquaintances that can learn a little bit more about what life is like with a disability through these posts. I'd like to take a couple of minutes and share some folks with real-life stories. Meet Barbara. Barbara is a self-employed trainer and a guide dog owner, also blind. Barbara uses Twitter for talking with friends, sharing information and experiences, and giving other people a little bit of support. Here's what she says. Twitter does away with the eye contact element of a conversation. We're all equal, and I think that's why people like it so much. If one of my disabled followers has been treated badly or is not feeling too good, it's nice to drop them a message saying, life can be a bit crappy, that happened to me. If I have experience with their situation, I'll also give them advice. I see tweets from people who don't come in contact with anyone face-to-face from one day to the next, and I can only imagine what it's like to be isolated. Meet Paul. Paul is a freelance journalist and a public relations executive. Paul is deaf. He says as a freelance journalist, he uses Twitter as an informal news wire to keep updated with information on politics and the latest disability and deaf happenings. Here's what he says. Instead of making phone calls via third parties, which could be socially awkward, or where emails may be too formal, getting in touch with networks like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn is a good way to make contacts informally. Social networks allow me to communicate with hearing people on equal terms, removing prejudices. Most people don't know that I'm deaf when I speak to them online unless I tell them. I believe social networks make a huge difference to deaf people. They allow us to share information in real time rather than waiting for traditional forms of media, which are slower in spreading and sharing information. Meet Kel. Kel is a writer, a blogger, and a mother of 5. Kel's daughter, Nella, born in 2010, has Down syndrome. Kel spent a year cataloging her journey, which became a New York Times best-selling memoir called Bloom. Kel uses her blog to tell her story, and it's incredibly inspiring. She has thousands of followers, and she's built an online community that has helped her raise over $267,000 for the National Down Syndrome Society and $123,000 for Ruby's Rainbow. This showcases the power of an online community formed from a common bond. Here's what she says. While this blog is not a Down syndrome specific blog, I do occasionally write about it. You can find these posts in the Down syndrome category tab. In the early days after Nella's diagnosis, I was comforted by peeking in the windows, in the online creeper soda way, of course, of families who had a child with Down syndrome and seeing that life does go on. It takes hard work and an enormous space in your heart to love and raise a child. You'll see that reflected for all of the children through this blog. But what defines us the most as individuals and as a family is a love and celebration for life's little moments. Go ahead, poke around the blog, look at pictures. Hopefully you'll see what we want the world to see. Not a child who has Down syndrome, but simply a child. Let's talk about technology for a moment. It's pretty remarkable how these folks can utilize technology to communicate. I have read countless stories of those who have embraced technology to do things that they once thought were never possible. Just to give you an example, I recently read a story about a teenager who is deaf and then became legally blind too, but can see small portions of the screen. At home, the following combination of hardware and software is used to access the web. Screen magnification software, screen reader software that displays text on the screen on a refreshable Braille device, large computer screen with high resolution and high luminosity, portable refreshable Braille device that displays characters in tactile form. That's pretty incredible. And technology is just the beginning. It's the precursor for social media, and social media has become a place for people to tell their story, share common bonds, and influence or inspire other people. In fact, to me, this is the magic of social media, community. There are a myriad of resources available for finding those who are looking for jobs, including people with disabilities. You're probably familiar with some of the resources, such as state vocational rehabilitation agencies and associations like AAPD. I want to highlight just a few agencies and organizations committed to career placement, and then I want to share some ways these resources are leveraging social media. In terms of the disability resources, most of these sites that you're about to see are somewhat familiar. Disability.gov connects people with disabilities to helpful resources, including how to find a job. The NBDC is an employer membership organization and a resource for disability employment best practices. The Job Accommodation Network helps people with disabilities increase their employability and succeed on the job. The SBA has resources dedicated specifically to small business owners with disabilities. Getting Hired bridges the gap between job seekers with disabilities and employers looking to hire. And the Campaign for Disability Employment, which is funded by the Office of Disability Employment, is a collaboration with disability and business organizations to promote positive outcomes for people with disabilities. One of the things I'm finding is there are several resources for leveraging social media within a few of the examples I just gave you. These agencies have social media accounts, some with hundreds and even thousands of followers. I want to share a few so you can get a sense of the community that they're building with social media. DisabilityGov has over 41,000 Facebook fans and 97,000 Twitter followers. That's pretty monumental. SBA has over 135,000 Facebook fans and 191,000 Twitter followers. Getting Hired has a blog which is dedicated to doing just that, getting hired, and is updated frequently with writers on staff and guest posts. The Campaign for Disability Employment has over 35,000 Facebook fans. As you can see with the circle that I have there, I'm actually connected to several of the people who are fans. So why is all of this relevant? It's important because those with disabilities are relying on these resources to get their information about employment. Keep this in mind as we continue this presentation. I'll show you how to tie all of this information together at the end. Now I want to talk about social networking, both for job seekers and people with disabilities. And the three areas that I really want to highlight today are LinkedIn, blogs, and search. I'm going to talk about LinkedIn to start. I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn because it is a business networking site. It eliminates that blurring of the personal with sites like Facebook. It's a useful tool for networking with people, for contacting new people, and just conducting research. With that, it's also a site where a lot of job seekers lurk. I want to highlight a few key features so that you can navigate it to find your target. The first one is LinkedIn search. The beauty of the digital world are the search features, which are literally at our fingertips. I simply typed in the words physically disabled on LinkedIn, and in less than 5 seconds, look what popped up. You can filter that search further by people, companies, groups, location, industry. Don't be afraid to play around with the advanced search features either, which is that little microscope magnifying glass when you log in. This can really be useful for drilling down your target audience and the uses for the site. Next are LinkedIn groups. Most people who have a LinkedIn account typically join a few groups. This is another powerful job-seeking tool, and the ability to search for specific criteria makes it even more powerful. There are two statistics that I found when I was researching information for this presentation. I was surprised, but maybe not, that LinkedIn has job listings for 3 million positions, and that 94% of recruiters use LinkedIn to source and vet candidates. With that percentage, it's likely that you may also already be among this group. There are also groups that exist for the sole purpose of allowing job seekers and those with job openings to connect. Here are a few groups specifically for job seekers with over 15,000 members in the group. Job Angels, which is a nonprofit job search network of professionals helping other professionals find opportunities. Recruiters.network is a group of job seekers and recruiters. Indeed Discussion Group, which is the official job search group on LinkedIn for Indeed.com. And Job Hunt Help is a group for job seekers sharing advice, leads, and networking. Again, all of these groups have both types of people, employers and job seekers, and they have over 15,000 members. Here are a few groups specifically for disabilities. Each group has over 5,000 members. Disability Advocates, which are those who advocate for full inclusion of people with disabilities in the workplace and in community. Deaf and hard of hearing professionals, which is a group I'm a member of. It's a group of professionals who are college educated and who are looking to network with other people who are also hard of hearing or deaf. Disability.gov, which is the disability.gov group. The Campaign for Disability Employment, which is the Campaign for Disability Employment group. And Diversity and Disability at Work. This is a group for employers, employees, and coaches to expand their network of people about disability and diversity management. When we get to the action plan portion of this presentation, I will discuss how these groups can be of value to your efforts. But if you haven't already considered joining some of them, I highly recommend it. Now I want to discuss blogs. Early on in the presentation, I discussed Kel's blog regarding Down syndrome. If you recall, her online community, formed of her blog readers and social media followers, contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to her causes. That's the impact of blogging, and it's very real. I can use myself as an example. I've seen firsthand how a blog can positively impact a business. I've been blogging at least once a week for the past 6 years, and it's been the single largest source of business for me. My posts have built my audience, dramatically increased my SEO, and generated top-of-mind awareness among my readers. Because of these efforts, I've had the opportunity to network with clients and attain clients from New York, Los Angeles, Texas, even Europe and Asia, which I don't think is too bad for a business from central Pennsylvania. What's relevant to this discussion is that personal posts resonate with readers. As people, we all have interesting stories that have helped define who we are, and relaying these stories is a powerful way to form a strong personal connection with readers. For example, of all of my posts that have ever been published, and I was blogging twice a week for an entire year at one point, my most popular blog was the story of a bad car accident that changed my life forever. This post was written over 4 years ago, but it continues to rank in the top 5 hits of my site. And I believe I am up to about 5,800 since I pulled this. Every day I'm still getting hits to this blog post. It's pretty amazing. Here's another example. This is the Limping Chicken, which is found at limpingchicken.com. This blog is based in the UK. It's an independently run deaf news and deaf blog site that's housed nearly 4 million views. The editor is a deaf journalist, and they have 120 deaf writers on the site. What I found is they also have major hearing aid companies and supporters post advertising on the site, which is actually a rarity these days. So you monetize your site, a blog site, and find advertisers is not something that happens anymore. The folks that are writing these blogs and the people we talked about earlier, these are who we can call influencers. They're everyday people who find an online niche, and then they built an organic community of followers who place their trust in them, sometimes even more than a big name brand. There are hundreds of blogs dedicated to disabilities, disability rights, disability culture, technology for those with disabilities, ADHD blogs, and dozens more. The last part of this 3-part presentation in terms of LinkedIn, blogging, and search is search. And there's so much information on the internet. Fortunately, that doesn't mean that you have to research for days. You can set up alerts by keyword so that you know when a topic of interest is mentioned online. And the resource that I like to use is Google Alerts. You can simply go to google.com/alerts and enter a keyword or phrase. Then you set up the frequency of communication, such as a daily alert or a weekly alert. And then you can narrow the scope by region, since many of us are looking in the United States. And you can also select the type of alert, such as a news story or a blog. Once you've set it up, you can receive an alert at the frequency you requested. You may find that you need to make adjustments to that keyword or phrase that you put in, but that's simple and it only takes a minute to help you refine your search results. So now let's talk about the most important part, how you can connect with prospective candidates. When we started talking today, I told you that social networking is not a tactic or a quick fix. It's an ongoing strategy, a conversation, and a community. It's relationship building, and it takes time. With that, I do not have a silver bullet for you today, but I am going to tell you how you can get started and how you can maintain your efforts without the crash and burn that I see so many people experience. The first step is identifying your target and identifying your goals. Target is most specific for what you guys may be doing. Are you looking for anyone with a disability or certain types of disabilities? Which geographic location are you targeting? Are you looking for a specific industry or a specific skill set? Take the time to really drill down your target to narrow your search. This is critical for breaking through the noise. It's equally important to consider what your goals are. If it's simply sourcing candidates, then that's what we need to be focusing our energy on. If it's just learning, if maybe it's educating, if it's networking, it's important to define those goals as well. Step 2, set up the Google alerts that I talked about a little bit ago for key terms relevant to your target and the industry. You may want to try a variety of keywords and phrases and see which ones offer the best results for your search. Once you receive the alerts, I recommend that you actually take a moment to read through them and see what the news is in the industry. This will help you learn what's the buzz, and it will also help you to narrow down where you may be able to find people on social media. But this is a great start because there is so much information out there. Step 3, determine your social media channels. First, you have to consider which social media channels you might already use and how you can leverage them to find your target. I say this because I see people with the shiny object syndrome where they hear of something new, like Snapchat or something along that line, and they jump on it when that's not really necessarily going to maintain their efforts. So start with where you're at. If you're a LinkedIn user, you may want to join some of the groups we discussed today, or try to play around with the search tool to see how your target is using the channel. If you're a Twitter user, try a few items in search or look up a popular hashtag for your target. Set up some lists and start watching what's being tweeted. If you're a Facebook user, see what fan page contain your target audience. See what they're liking. See what they're commenting on. You can search for Facebook groups as well. If you enjoy reading blogs, or maybe you're already a blogger, check out the blogs in your target and subscribe to receive them by email or RSS feed so you can be notified when the blog is updated. If you're not currently active on social media, don't worry. You may want to do a little bit of research and see where your target spends their time. Also consider that you can search by keyword through any of these channels to see what's being said. You may find a particular channel where conversations are happening and select that channel based on the search. Now, if you notice, what I talked to you about so far is passive. I haven't asked you to contact anybody. I haven't asked you to start cold calling, connect. Right now, this is the monitoring stage, and it's really important because once you spend time here and you know then where your target truly resides and what the topics are, what the conversation is, it helps you narrow down later when it's time for outreach and connection. Step 4 is getting your profiles in working order. Make sure that you have your social profiles up to date and as complete as possible. Make sure you have a recent photo, I would say within the past 3 years, and accurate contact information. I try to complete my profile as much as possible so that contacts have a sense of knowing who you are before they've even met you. This is another foundational task. Now, we get into the fun stuff. Step 5 is building your community and integrating wherever you can. For example, did you go to a networking event recently? Did you meet someone new? Consider sending him or her a LinkedIn connection request or following that person on Twitter. Building your audience is a critical step to engagement, which is, well, engagement's where the magic happens. But you have to have an audience in order to engage, so don't be afraid to connect. And a very simple example is today, if you were on the call when everybody introduced themselves, I was taking notes. I wrote down everybody's name and their business and location, and I plan to see if any of these folks are on LinkedIn and connect with them. That's a simple way to build your network. Step 6 is engage. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's time to get active on the networks by becoming a member of the community and providing thoughtful contributions. Here are a few ideas for getting started with engagement. Participating in a relevant discussion on LinkedIn. Monitoring and even responding in tweet chats. Reading, sharing, and commenting on some of these blogs that you're subscribing to. Liking and posting comments on Facebook pages. Tweeting about and tagging companies that are relevant to your target. Retweeting relevant items from Twitter conversations. This does take time and effort. How much time? Well, that depends. It's easy to push it off, and it's just as easy to get sucked in. My recommendation is to start with 10 minutes a day and monitor the interactions. Track your progress. See what's working. Once you feel comfortable and you're starting to gain traction, go ahead and rev up to 20 or even 30 minutes a day. A word of caution, though, is to be careful not to spend more than an hour, I would say, in one sitting on these activities, because then you could risk sacrificing progress and productivity. Trust me, I know. There's a lot of eye candy on social media, and it's very easy to get distracted. I like to set a time limit for myself, and it's something that if you need to, do so, but do get started. Relationships don't happen overnight, but the sooner you dip your toes in the water, the closer you are to generating sustainable relationships that will lead to your end goal. Once you start to build authentic relationships, that's where you could ask to perhaps write a guest blog or host a webinar. I recommend this once you've proven to be a valuable member of the community. Too many times I see people try to take shortcuts, and it just simply doesn't work that way unless you want to pay to play. Step 7, and this is the last step, is keep at it. It's easy to get busy and forget about social media, especially when there's no tangible or immediate result. The key here is to track your progress over time and stay the course. You may have to make multiple shifts in your approach, but you'll know when you're making leeway and when you're just wasting your time. We're often asked by our clients, when will we see leads? The majority of our clients start to see leads within 3 to 6 months of their efforts, primarily those who take our advice. But for some, leads have happened immediately. For others, it takes up to 2 years. The thing that I can tell you from experience is that the clients who see the more immediate leads, who meet their goals, are the ones who have a solid plan of action and a target, that they integrate social media with their existing marketing efforts, and that they remain consistent. My takeaway is social media is a marathon, not a sprint. Thank you for allowing me to talk with you today. I'm happy to help if you would like assistance with social media marketing, both consulting and the day-to-day management. I encourage you to check out my website at StrellaSocialMedia.com. You'll find my information, you'll find my social media sites, and you'll find some stuff about our services. Thanks again for taking the time to talk with me today, and I welcome your feedback and questions.